First one being at the Monclova Community Center, and then the next one being in Springfield. So we will be available from 12 to 7 p.m., available to answer questions. And then, of course, if anyone needs assistance filing their Board of Revision paperwork, we can help make sure that you get your your case filed and scheduled so you can have your Board of Revision hearing. Most importantly, I'm here today. I mentioned last week that our office is going to engage in an independent third-party performance audit of the 2024 revaluation. And with that, we had a verbal agreement with John G. Clemenshaw, who is the premier expert on mass appraisals in Ohio and beyond, has extensive experience in the mass appraisal business, and it has performed many performance and independent audits in counties in Ohio. And so I'm really looking forward to the work he will do so he can shed light onto the 2024 revaluation. He can examine any error, the programming error that happened, and then he can help lead and give best practices for the Lucas County and the Auditor's Office for the next revaluation that we will have in Lucas County. And with that, I want to introduce him. He is here today, so I would love it if John would come up here and introduce himself and maybe be available to answer any questions for you. Thank you.
Good morning. I can tell you some about my background if that would be helpful. And then, as Katie mentioned, I'm available for any questions. I think she hit all the major points of what they're contracting, the Auditor's Office is contracting with my company and principally myself personally to do, which is, she mentioned, and I'm perhaps being redundant here, but is a independent analysis of the 2024 reappraisal. And in that, principally, we are looking to determine the quality, overall quality, and you can say, what does that mean? Was equity achieved? Were all taxpayers treated equally? And that's normally determined through statistical analysis. With that said, and with the idea that, like Katie said, one of the other key things that I am looking to provide to the county is best practices, some recommendations for determining or going about the process of future reappraisals. So a little bit about me, 36 years in the business. I feel like I grew up in the mass appraisal business because I'm the third generation of Clemenshaws in the mass appraisal business. In fact, my family pioneered mass appraisal in the United States. We do work in 22 counties in the state of Ohio. So that's some about me and our company.
I got a couple questions for you. So,
sure.
Will you look in the past of 24? Will you look in when this happened in 21 in those years, or strictly focus on 24?
I'm hoping I'm understanding your question correctly, but we'll be looking at the results of the reappraisal. So when you say,
will you look at how the results looked in 21 and how they looked in 18 and years past?
No. I'm going to be focused on the 2024 reappraisal itself.
Okay.
You're asking whether or not, like in contrast, is that perhaps
yeah,
what you're saying?
Are you going to go look in the past and see if things were done well in 21 and 18 in those years, or are you just going to focus on 24?
Yeah, that's not the scope of this particular.
Okay. And when you're looking in 24, what are the things you're looking for? What are the anomalies, the problems that you maybe have spotted in other counties that may come up here?
Yeah. As I mentioned, my main toolbox, if you will, is going to be the statistical analysis of the work that was done. So I'm looking for consistency within classifications and overall what we call equity, meaning how close to the sale price of properties were the auditor's values, the determinations. The state of Ohio, as you may or may not know, the courts have repeatedly come back with the decisions that a valid sale of a property is the best indication of what the market value is. So that becomes the rule, is the sales would indicate, is this value accurate within a certain standard that's determined by the state of Ohio.
Have you done work for Lucas County along these lines before?
Not any sort of a performance evaluation, no.
Have you had other contracts with the auditor's office?
We have, back when Larry Kazala was county auditor, we did a lot of the commercial industrial appraisal back in the early 2000s.
Prior to your taking this assignment, had you ever heard of a company called Data Cloud Solutions?
Yes.
What do you know about them?
They are a software firm. My understanding is that has produced what we call a field application, and that is their principal product that I'm aware of, but I can't claim to be an expert on all their offerings.
Have you ever had to deal with a county that's been facing like a potential programming error before?
Not anything exactly like this, no.
When you've done these before, has there been something in another county that you maybe noticed, a problem or something that they encountered that you keep a particular eye out for that other counties may encounter in the future?
I wouldn't say, every reappraisal and every situation is unique, so I would say I'd have to ponder that a little bit. I mean, you learn things along the way, but no, I'd have to say no. It would be my general answer.
There have been some, I'm sure you've heard some of the chatters come out of Lucas County over the last couple of weeks. There have been some that have worried that in past years things were artificially lowered, value-wise, or artificially lowered. Will your scope or will your look be able to determine if things were artificially lowered in the past and maybe they needed to be right-sized now?
I would hope that our analysis would be able to determine that. And what you may already be aware of, and some of the things that Katie has passed along, is that the Department of Taxation with the state of Ohio acts as a watchdog, so to speak, to the work that the county auditors do. And they also have an eye on that and will not approve values if they are artificially suppressed. But that will be part of the scope, yeah.
Do you have an estimate of how long your investigation will take and how much it will cost the auditor's office?
I would say it's difficult to say at this point. I think once we get into it, we'll be able to give a better estimate of what that would be.
So there's no cost estimate at this point?
Well, right now, we're working out the details of the contract at this point, so I think I haven't even begun to delve into it yet, so.
When you say you look at statistics and statistical analysis, we've had residents that say, my property went up 54%, 64%, something like that. Will you look at those kind of anomalies, or will you look further in other pieces of data? What sort of stats are you looking for?
Well, one of the things that I think that gets lost in reappraisals quite often is the presumption that the previous value assignment was correct. So I'm going to use that example that you just gave, where you said that a property went up 54%. Well, let's examine that particular situation, because was the previous value accurate in the first place? And what has happened to that property in the course of the last 3 or 6 years? There can be a lot of improvements to a property that would cause maybe your neighbor's property to increase in value a lot more than yours. So each situation is different, but I hope I answered your question there.
Yeah, and Katie's heard them too. There are plenty of folks out here that say, well, I went up 64%. I don't get it, because the average, I believe, Katie, 29%,
29.5 for residential properties,
right.
yes.
So when they hear that number and they went up 64, that's the rub for people. So
Sure.
Is what you're saying is that you take into consideration, was the last one correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. But the important part about a sexennial reappraisal is you're looking at each individual property. I don't want to stay away from the word scratch, but you're looking at them independently and sort of breaking it down, and rather than looking at properties in a greater grouping. And what I mean by that is there's something called a triennial update that you may be aware of. And in that case, when increases are made, oftentimes it's all ships rise with the tide. Whereas in a sexennial, we're looking at individual properties. So when you're doing that, there are going to be different increases, in some cases decreases, that are more or less than an average. So,
And you're not going through each home individually, you're kind of looking at the whole process.
precisely, yeah. The scope at this point is to take a look at the job, the broad job. We won't be looking at individual properties.
I had a couple for Katie, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
A viewer question. If somebody was on the list of the 1,300 with the glitch, you've given them a new value now, correct?
I'm so glad you asked about that. Yes, so,
Can they appeal that value that you've given them?
yes.
Okay.
Because it was a clerical error, as it was presented to the Board of Revision initially, because of it, the nature of it was clerical, they still have the right to go to the Board of Revision and appeal that new value that was assigned, or the value that should have been assigned if there wouldn't have been that clerical error.
Okay.
It's a great, I'm glad you asked about that. And just on that topic,
Yeah.
everyone that has been affected by, that was affected, those 1,400 have received their refunds. If they already paid their tax bill, the tax bill has been extended until the end of February. There's been no penalties, everyone's been notified. So we've really shut the door on that, I think, and helped make everyone whole that was affected by that programming error.
Just so I have this clear, what you just referred to as a clerical error, is that the programming error?
Yes. So a programming error would be considered a clerical error by the Board of Revision. Thank you for that, yeah.
Can you, what can people expect at these community meetings? Who's gonna be there? What can they, do you want them to bring information? Do you want them to just show up? What can you tell people about that?
You know, I want to be available to answer questions about the whole process. I know there's been a lot of confusion and frustration, and so if folks want to come and just understand the process more, that's what we're here for. We'll have my expert staff that works in real estate to be able to answer questions for folks, but also if they want to file for the BOR, for a BOR hearing, we can provide assistance with that. So we can do that right, we can schedule and get their filing there so they can, and then know what to expect at the Board of Revision. So, what type of evidence should homeowners bring if they want to contest their value, and what to expect in their Board of Revision hearing. So we want to be a resource. People can come talk to the experts on my staff, talk to me, and answer any questions that they may have.
It was interesting to hear him say that there could be some issues where the old value was wrong. Maybe, how it was done in the past, and then you come in with one now. Is there concern from you, or how much concern is there from you that previous numbers are wrong or inaccurate or artificially lowered?
I'm glad you asked that, because there's the baseline, and we are seeing dramatic increases, and so people want to know, is that just because of the net, are we in line with the rest of Ohio counties, or was there something specific that happened? And so we do have to look at that baseline, and that did contribute, I think, to some properties really having that exponential increase. What I'm looking forward to is having this independent audit that can really bring clarity to that and have a better understanding. I don't want to speculate before that comes out, though.
Because I'm sure your office had to have noticed or had to have caught when some people were up 40, 50, 60%, right?
Of course, but there's uniqueness in these values. As John had mentioned, where did we start? Were the property values reduced? Was there something that happened to that property 3 years ago that maybe contributed to its value being low, and then there was new construction or new improvements that were done that really increased the quality and value of the home. So each situation is pretty unique. So I think that's what, when you go through a reappraisal, you have to consider.
Because, and I ask because that's one thing that residents have said to me is that, for example, if I went to the grocery store and milk was 60% higher, I would go, wow, that is. And so I think the concern from some people is if you saw values that were 40, 50, 60% increased, did your office ever flag them? Did your office ever said, wait a minute, this John and Sally Public here, I need to call them, or I need to run the number again, or do something because I saw such a high increase? Did your office see those, and was there a reaction to them when the numbers were higher?
Just because there was an increase doesn't, it could be accurate though. So you don't want to, I would never want to raise the flag and just assume because there was an increase it's not accurate. Averages, of course, some people are below the average, some are above the average, but that's what made up that 29.5%. Of course, if it's inaccurate, or if people have concerns, that's why the Board of Revision exists. So they can say, I had a 60% increase. I don't think that's in line with what my neighbors, or I don't think that's in line with what the fair market, would, my house would be able to sell for, that's when the Board of Revision comes in and can make that correction.
I know, people have until the 31st to schedule those hearings. When are, hearings starting?
Hearings are starting next week.
Okay.
So there's already been about 300 folks that have already are on our schedule to have a BOR hearing, but they do have until March 31st to file. And so they can do that right now online at our website. They can come to our community events, they can come to our office, but they have all of those opportunities to file and make sure you get it done by the 31st if you want to contest or if you have concerns about your property value. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sir, can I have that proper spelling of your last name?
Sure, it's CL